Hello and welcome to the Ratio Podcast. I'm your host, Johnny Araya, and as always, we are recording from beautiful downtown Athens, Georgia. So good to be back with you here in 2023. Happy New Year to everybody. We've got a couple episodes we're going to be releasing. This is one of them that are from 2022, the way we did the interviews then. And we didn't want them to get lost in the shuffle of the holiday madness. So first up tonight, we have our good friend, Johnny Araya. And Johnny does an awesome podcast called The Haunted Chapel with his partner, BZ Elliot. And Johnny's worked with Slayer and so many artists over the years. He's got a really kick-ass story and is super cool to talk to. So we'll have that chat coming up for you in a few minutes. Just want to let everybody know that we are, as I said, back kind of on the regular schedule. You'll see episodes coming out all month and from here on. And we also want to announce our first live date of the year, and that will be on February 15th at Cine Athens, and we will have all of the information you need to either attend or watch at home or all that good stuff, including guests. So be on the lookout for that on our socials and on the website. And also, just want to thank everybody for all their continued support that we had through 2022. As I've said, we're really excited about this year, and your support is making all of this possible. And I cannot be more thankful than I am for the listeners and the feedback we have. And it's just such a killer place to be here at the Ratio Podcast with Jack Slayton, Mike Schulenberg, and as always, editing these episodes, Mr. Brant Duncan. So I know I've shouted out Brant before, but let's continue to sing his praises each episode. But before we get too far down the road, let's get to our chat with Mr. Johnny Araya. All right, Johnny Ray with the Ratio Podcast, and tonight I've got Johnny Araya, another Johnny, two Johnnies for the price of one here. How you doing, my friend, man?
I'm doing all right. How you doing?
Good. Well, Johnny is a podcaster now. He's one of my festival buddies. We always see each other out in Vegas, and hopefully more shows now that everything's kind of opening up.
Yeah, I hope so.
But, man, Johnny has a really interesting story, and I've been dying to get him on the podcast. Super cool dude. But just start out, man, you just got back from the Misfits shows that Johnny works with the Misfits. And how cool is it to be working with the Misfits around Halloween time?
Oh, yeah, it's pretty cool. We kind of did one a few years ago. And, yeah, it's just cool to see everyone dressed up as fiends and everyone gets in the Halloween spirit, you know, and Glenn's all about Halloween and the Misfits are all about Halloween. So it's pretty cool to watch this Halloween band play on Halloween, singing about Halloween, and everyone's dressed up as Halloween, and you're playing, you know, you're on stage with a bunch of fiends. It's pretty cool, man.
Yeah, and everybody's just vibe, man. It's always like I've seen it twice since they've got back together, and it's just the greatest vibe out in the crowd, man. Everybody is really digging those songs. How long you been working with Glenn now?
Oh, with Glenn, I started with Glenn back in the OG Danzig days.
Right.
This must have been about 92 or 93, maybe. I started with Glenn. So I've been working off and on with him since 93.
Wow. And you know, he's killing it right now. You know, with every time I've seen him lately, he's just destroying it, as he always does. But let's get to, you know, first of all, I want to talk about you and BZ Elliot's awesome podcast, The Haunted Chapel.
Thanks.
And how did this start about?
The podcast started about, actually, my sister, she kept egging me and pushing me. Hey, you got to do a podcast, man. You got to do podcasts. I'm like, yeah, you know, all right, yeah, that sounds cool. I'll do some research into it. I never thought about it because there were so many out, and you know, I just, you know, who gives a hell what I have to say? I'm just whatever, you know. You know, and so we did some research. I'm like, yeah, that's pretty cool, you know. And then she kept telling me, you got stories start a podcast. You know lots of people. You can talk to these people and get your story out. And I'm like, well, yeah, I'll give it a shot. We'll try it. Let's try it. So we got some gear together. My sister sent me a birthday present. She sent me some headphones and a couple of mics. I was like, oh shit, thanks.
Nice.
So she's kind of like, she's like, here, man, here's some headphones. Now you have to. I'm like, oh.
That's so great.
I'm like, so yeah. So we kicked the idea around, and Britt and I threw some ideas around, and I said, if I'm gonna do this, I don't want to do this alone. I need you to, be like a host with me, a co-host. We had throw stuff back and forth, like me coming from like the backstage or working side, industry side of the music scene, and Britt, who's just a huge fan of metal music and music in general, and have her side of get her points across, her questions from a fan point of view. And it's kind of cool how it works out together. She's the huge music fan, and I'm more like, oh, what kind of amp is that, or what kind of guitar is that? Instead of like, what's it like playing in front of 50,000 people? I know how that feels, so I'm like, whatever. Like, what guitar is that?
Right.
And she's more like, wow, this album, this track on this song on this song on this album is my favorite. Or this album's my favorite in this year, this and that. She knows. She's like an encyclopedia of music, where I'm just like, I'm more into like the gear and the technical side of how bands and how artists came to be.
Yeah, and that chemistry works so well with y'all. I mean, because she's like a cheerleader for music, for metal, and then you've definitely got the other side of it. And I just love the guests. Like I was telling you, man, you had Jeff from Possessed, Jeff Becerra, who just has my total and complete respect. And a really good long interview with him too, man. And and then you got the Tardy brothers, and there's no end for my love for the Mighty Obituary. So do you feel now, working as you do on the other side of this, that when you go up to people to ask them to be on the podcast, that you're almost signing people up for jury duty? Kind of that. Here I come. I'm going to ask you. So is that come into play yet?
No, it hasn't. I just kind of I've asked a few people, and some friends have said, yeah, sure, I'll do it. I just haven't gotten around to finalizing and saying, hey, let's do it on this date, because we've been kind of busy the past few months. That whole Las Vegas thing that we did. And me like prepping for Danzig and then Misfits in between here and there, and working. So we're trying to like find a good medium, because she's always tattooing, or she's making tables. She's always doing something. And for us to find a time to like, hey, let's sit down and let's take an hour out of our day and do this. It's kind of tough sometimes, but we're trying to make the time for it now. But there's so much going on, and the editing takes so long. Like the Becerra one took me a week, because we talked for 3 hours. I'm like, man, how do I edit this? So I'm sitting there listening to audio. I must have listened to that 3-hour conversation at least 3 or 4 times. So I've sat and listened to that thing for at least a day, more than a day, and then editing the video as well to the audio. It's real time consuming, but I enjoy that technical stuff, so it doesn't really bother me. But man, it takes a lot of time.
Yeah. Well, I want to remind everybody the show's called the Haunted Chapel Podcast. It's so badass. And one thing I really love about it is the kind of something we try and do here, and we're going to try and be doing more, especially focusing on the Athens area, is I love the mini show reviews when you and Brittany will be like, hey, we went out and saw Jerry Cantrell last night, and you get a snapshot of that night that you guys had. And for someone that's not able to go to the shows, it's kind of like when we were kids, reading about bands and shit. It's like the new, I love that side of it. And you guys have been like going to a lot of shows lately. So what's really stuck out in your head lately?
Lately, I went to see, that Jerry Cantrell show. That was awesome. That was like, we were standing right. We made sure we stood at eye level. The Aztec has like like three or four different levels of on the floor. Like there's the pit, the floor, and then there's like one level up, and that's the level we were at. So we were like eye level with the guys on stage, and we were right in the front. And I said, we got to be right in front, so we make sure that these fuckers see us, right?
Right.
So we're sitting there like they fucking started our plane, right? Fucking plane. Everyone pulls off their phones, of course. Like a bunch of jerks. Everyone has their phone. I'm like, come on, man, really?
Are you
And
really
this
gonna
some dude,
watch this shit later? Are you really gonna watch this shit
yeah,
later, folks? Come on now, let's enjoy the event. Yeah, sorry, to interrupt you. Go ahead.
yeah. You got to live in the moment. You're sitting there like watching a show through a little phone screen because I think it's just out of habit. People just like on their phones all the time. They'd rather watch it through a screen than in person, which is weird to me.
It's
So
insane.
it's insane, right?
Yeah.
So we're sitting there watching the show. Britt and I are just fucking rocking out. He's playing some fucking solo album songs, and they're like looking around, and everyone's on their phones, and we're the only two standing there fucking headbanging. And they noticed us, which was cool because at the end of the show, we got to go back there, and I got to say hi to Jerry. I've known
Nice,
that dude
nice.
I've known him for years. We met back in '91 on
Oh,
the Alice in Chains opened up that Clash of Titans tour.
fuck yes, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so we met him back then. We've been friends ever since. So I really wanted Britt to meet Jerry because she's a huge Cantrell fan, huge Alice fan.
He's
So
amazing.
yeah, he's awesome. He's just this incredible songwriter, um, musician. I mean, he's just awesome. He just writes these incredible songs.
And
So
well, going back to, you said you've known him for years. I want to get further into this in a little bit, but you worked that Clash of the Titans tour with Slayer.
uh huh.
So, what are your recollections? I was at that show, man, and I just remember for about two songs they got shit, and then the whole fucking crowd was into them.
Oh yeah,
It
yeah.
was it was a really rough crowd. What are some of your recollections of that '91 Clash of the Titans tour, the American
Yeah,
version?
hey, exactly what you just said right now. Like Alice would come out, and people were just like, "Boo, fuck you," because they weren't metal.
Right.
They were just, this grunge band out of Seattle. So they were just getting heckled and booed, and I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with these people? These guys are rad. So, but like you said, like 3 or 4 songs into it, people kind of like, all right, these guys are pretty heavy. The fans kind of had to change your heart, and rightfully so, because they came on, they fucking started right up. They played all their heaviest shit, and midway through the set, the crowd was like, "Fuck yeah, these guys are rad." So it was cool to watch them come out and face the Slayer crowd
Yeah.
and just be totally fucking harassed and yelled at, and then sticking it out. And then by the end of the set, everybody's like, "Fuck yeah, Alice in Chains!" Everyone's cheering them on, and I think the Lane knew how to play the crowd. He'd go out there, he'd start chanting Slayer, like Slayer, Slayer. Who's your favorite band? Mine, Slayer. He would say shit like that,
Shit.
and the
Yeah.
crowd was like, "Fuck yeah!" But yeah, by the end of the show, the whole crowd was into Alice in Chains, and that was incredible to watch.
Yeah.
And
And
Lane he was so good.
let me remind our listeners, there wasn't a smartphone in sight in this crowd. Look how much
No,
fun they had. So,
no phones.
but
Just lots of smoke, lots of beer, and no phones. It was awesome.
absolutely, how it should be. Now
Yep.
let's get back to your beginnings. You come from a musical family. I researched. I heard you on one of the podcasts talking about you and your sister both played clarinet.
Uh
Uh,
huh.
and you eventually switched to bass, and your brother Tom played the bass. Now, did he pass that on to you, or was that just an interest on your own? We're like, I want to see if I can, you know, my take on this instrument.
Actually, I learned how to play guitar first through my older brother Cisco.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, he said, "Hey man, I'm gonna get you a guitar." I'm like, "Sweet." So then he comes back and he has this Harmony, those old Sears
Oh
guitars
shit,
from
yeah.
back in the day. He goes, "I got this one. I found this one, and I put it together. It was just like this maroon guitar. It was like a Strat shape. It had a crazy ass rosewood fretboard and plastic tuning heads, and it had a chrome pick guard with one single coil speaker in the middle, like a chrome not speaker, chrome pickup, and the pick guard was taped with electrical tape. Like it looked like Eddie Van Halen, like a very like low
Nice.
budget EVH guitar, and that's what I learned on. He showed me 3 chords, and he says, you know, would be good songs, some good stuff to listen to is AC/DC because it's 3 chords. You'll be able to pick it up fast. I'm like, all right. So I went and got Highway to Hell, and which was the worst album to learn the guitar to because each song is tuned differently.
Right.
So I'm like, what? Oh, fuck. You know, I'm like, all right, it sounds like this note. And then the next song comes on, like, wait, this sounds like this note now. Like, what the hell?
Oh yeah.
Then I learned 20 years later, like, oh yeah, each song's tuned different. I'm like, God damn it. So
That's
but that was like,
confounding. Yeah, that's when you're a young musician, it just destroys
like,
you.
well,
You know.
yeah, why is every song different? But yeah, Malcolm Young was my guitar teacher, man. I swore by Malcolm Young, but he was my idol growing up. And
Couldn't
Angus,
be.
because I was soloing, but Malcolm more so because he just stood back there, shook his head, and he was just the constant rhythm. Like he was the number one guy, man. Like everyone was like, whenever they had questions about anything, like asking the band was like, oh, talk to Malcolm, talk to Malcolm.
Yeah.
So he was the boss.
And he was the boss on stage when you go see him, man. You remember
Yep.
him? He would stand back in the
Yeah.
back, man. But he had full control of what
Yeah.
was going on, man.
He's back there, jeans and a t-shirt and his guitar, and he's just shaking his head like rah, rah, rah. His little demon, his little I don't know, gremlin voice, you know.
Oh yeah. And
He's awesome.
I think with Highway to Hell, I learned a lot of those songs as I was learning to play guitar, and I just power chorded them. So I was chorded them wrong. And then later, when
Right.
you like learn to chord them right and everything, you're like, these songs are just masterpieces, every one of them.
Yeah. Yep.
Just a rock and roll. I mean, I look at they're a metal band, but they're such a rock band too, man.
Yeah. They're so rock.
But
Can't
now
screw it. You can't fuck with Bon Scott.
you can't. And I mean, those records to me, I mean, I love all due respect to Brian Johnson. I love him, but my heart and soul lives in those Bond records, man.
Oh yeah,
And
for
that
sure.
shit was kind of wrong when we were growing up. I remember it was like the older bad kids
Yeah.
listened to fucking AC/DC, and so of course I
Yeah.
had to. But now like you come from you have 2 brothers, and then how many sisters?
Mm-hmm. 4 sisters.
4 sisters. So you come from a big
Yeah.
family,
So it's a
and
big family. Yeah.
so music was always in your house, just going down, man.
Oh yeah, there was always music in the house. My older sister Anna, who had passed away years ago, she always
Sorry.
had music playing. She's all about the Jimi Hendrix. She was really into Latin pop music. Like my parents and my family are from Chile, South America, so
Right.
she's really into the '60s South American pop music, which is really cool because I got into it later in life. I'm
Fuck
like,
yeah.
oh my god, these songs are great. And she's into that, and she always had music playing. So that's where my fondness for music. My earliest memories is just hearing music in the house. There's always music playing.
Now,
Uh,
I know Tom had other bands, a cover band, and then once Slayer got going, what was it like before you worked for him? Worked with him, that is. What was it like grow in your household once they started breaking with the imagery and just the fucking coolness or wildness around it?
let's see. I guess it started out wild. I mean, them rehearsing in the garage, and kids found out that they rehearsed there. So we lived next door to a grocery store. It was this huge market right on the corner. We're the first house after the parking lot. So kids would go and sit in the parking lot on the other side of the fence and listen to the guys jam in the garage.
Jesus
And
Christ.
word got out, and then the crowds, kept getting bigger and bigger, and
Drinking
they
and
eventually,
smoking weed out there and just like,
yeah,
hell yeah.
It was a tailgate party in this parking lot, this old abandoned market parking lot, and they every night it was just every time they jammed, there's kids huddled there. I'd look over, like peek around the corner, and sure enough, there's 3 or 4 cars. People just sitting there in the car, just fucking headbanging. They were. It wasn't malicious. They weren't trying to break shit or do anything. They were just sitting there listening. I'm like, oh man, this is crazy, right? And then that was like, show no mercy and shit. And then later on, like mid '80s, like around Rain and Blood, it wasn't it came to where it couldn't they couldn't do it anymore. There, it was just getting too big. So my dad sold a house in '88. Yeah, he sold a house in '88, so they had to move.
Yeah.
So they moved before that, I believe, to Anaheim because it was just getting too crazy with fans and people finding out where they rehearse, and we were getting uh, some crazy crank phone calls, and it just got crazy. It got like became like a party central.
Well,
So dad sold the house and we moved out to Riverside, and the guys found a rehearsal spot in Anaheim, and but yeah, while the guys are starting to expand and grow as a band and get more popular, my parents were like, that's just crazy, what they were proud of him, for what he did and what he was achieving, but it just the satanic stuff was kind of like they weren't really into that.
yeah, and a non-metal person or somebody that even like I feel like doesn't even really know Slayer, when they find out I do a metal podcast and we're talking about Slayer, the first thing they have to beat me over the head with is like, Tom's a Catholic, that Tom's a Catholic, and everything. I'm like, listen to the goddamn music, man, and like I don't give a shit what he prays to, but how much of that was a thing in your household? Was that because I grew up in a somewhat religious household, and I got shit just for listening to Slayer.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. My parents were, they didn't agree with the subject matter. They're very religious. My dad uh, a he was a deacon at the local church in Huntington Park. There, he was the priest there liked him so much, and he did so much for the church. They made him like an honorary deacon. So
Oh, right on.
yeah, yeah. So dad was very involved in the church there, local. Mom and dad, and yeah, they didn't really agree with the subject matter. And the older they got, the more they were like, you know, I guess the band kind of steered away from the satanic stuff in a way. They kind of went more towards social stuff, like and then war and serial killers, and it kind of expanded out a little bit.
Yeah.
So in the beginning, though, it was kind of tough because it was all about the upside down cross and the pentagram and all that bullshit, and they were like, "What the hell?" And it was tough for Dad because he was a deacon, and he used to go and talk to. He used to do like, what is that called when you do like people pass away and he go and comfort the family and do like a service for them,
Like a wake. Yeah.
and yeah, like a wake. He'd go and say words, and then had the family would speak, and he would help talk to the family and stuff. So it was real tough for him. He
Yeah.
had that conflict in him. He was just a man of God, but his son's over here singing about the devil. It's like, shit, what the hell, man?
Well,
So
taken at the time, especially, think about how many
yeah,
horror movies were out there. Think about, to me,
yeah,
I never really took their satanic lyrics seriously. It was more of a
mhm,
reflection of the vibes and the time. I mean, I thought it was
yeah,
cool as fuck. But I could see
yeah,
that leading to some difficult conversations. So, how
yeah, for
old were
sure.
you when you started getting involved with the band professionally?
Professionally, I guess 1986 was my like kind of real first professional tour. I had I got my first guitar tuner, and they had a semi, they had sound lights, they had fucking Marshall stacks, and it was crazy. It was like full on, big time. They had a bus, and we were fucking tripping because not a year before that we were riding around in a van
Right.
and a U-Haul and a Camaro, like just 2 or 3 years before that, driving across country in a Camaro and a box truck and all the gear that they owned in the back of that truck. And to go from that into like all of a sudden they got this bus and a semi full of fucking production, and we're playing these big ass theaters, and like, wow, wow. So that was my first real professional tour, was Brain and Blood in '86.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
And that was their
we did,
first album on a major label, correct?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
that's right. Yeah. Prior to that, we, the Hell Awaits, Show Mercy, all that stuff, but that was all done in a Camaro or a van, and we just did local. Like we just took our gear. just amps, drums, guitars. There was no lights. We didn't have no PA. One of our first runs, we had Gene Hoagland was Dave's drum tech, and he drove the van for us, and I was doing the guitars and bass and helped Dave set up drums, kind of. But I did mostly the guitars and bass, and then I'd go out and do the sound. And like, what year was that? It's in '84. I was like 15 doing all that shit.
Oh wow!
So I was like but before the bus and the truck, we had a bobtail and a van, and we did all our own shit, man. It was fun. It was crazy.
Yeah, it's got to be exciting when you're on that ride on the way up, and
Yeah,
what was
cool. It's cool because you don't know what's happening at that time. It's like, wow, this is fun. And then you look back like, wow, look what happened. That we were like right on the verge of exploding and becoming this huge metal band. And we had no idea. It was just like we were just having fun and just doing what we were doing, just going out and playing and drinking beers and fucking with our guests and stuff like that.
Yeah. And what you being a metal fan and a music fan, you're meeting, I'm sure. What were some of the bands that that Slayer was playing with on some of those bills for Rain and Blood?
Rain and Blood, we did that. I can't remember who was on that tour with us, but I know that we did a show in New York, which I'll never forget, with Agnostic Front and Megadeth.
Oh shit, yeah.
It was badass. It was the most insane show I've ever been to. We did Venom and met all these fucking cool ass bands. Voivod. First time we went up to Montreal, we got to meet Voivod, and I was like, oh fuck, man, this is badass. Like hanging out with Blackie in a way, and Snake, and Piggy, all the OG dudes. It was fucking. And meeting Venom, it was fucking cool. Meeting Carnivore.
Fuck yeah, Peter.
All these bands running into, and then like later down the line, they're like, wow, these guys are doing this now, and these guys are doing this now, and it's really cool to see how all these bands just kind of expanded and became their own, and kind of became just as popular, as Slayer. Yep.
Well, as Slayer kept moving on, you got into music yourself. Tell me about your experiences with Thine Eyes Bleed.
My experiences, well, let's see. I joined the band in 2004 because I had been working doing guitars for Kitty.
Yeah.
A metal band up from London, Ontario, and I met Justin, the singer for Thine Eyes, while I was up there, and we hit it off. Those guys like to smoke, so we fucking bonded, and their bass player quit. The original bass player, he didn't want to tour, he didn't want to play, and so I was up there. They're like, "Hey man, you want to play bass?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure, I'll play bass." So that was it. I joined as soon as the first record came out. I joined the band, and I was with them for like about 6 years or so, 6-7 years. We were 6 years maybe.
Right.
We're together as a band, recording and writing and touring. So. Yeah, that was great, man. That was fun. I had fun touring with those guys. They're good dudes.
Well, going back to Slayer a little bit, you were there. Pantera's last tour, if I'm correct, was with Slayer.
Yeah, that I'm not sure if it was Tattoo the Earth or what was the other one? The Extreme.
Steel or something.
The Steel tour. I didn't work for Slayer in that era. There was a period of time where I didn't work for the band.
Right.
Yeah. So that was like from like 2000, from like about 2000, 2001 to about 2009. I didn't work with the band because my dad passed in 2002. I got fucked up. Like it really fucked me up. It was brutal. And I was working with System of a Down at the time, and I couldn't tour, man. I was like, I just didn't tour. I was in a bad place, so I just I was in a rut for several months until a friend of mine called me, the tour manager for Kitty, this guy Rick, and he said, "Hey man, you still touring?" I'm like, "Well, yeah, sure, I'll tour, man." He goes, "All right, I got a gig. It's Kitty, it's 2 guitars, a bass, It's real easy. And I'm like, yeah, sure. So that's why I went back on tour. That's when I went back out again with Kitty, and then that's when Blind Eyes Bleed started, and
Yeah.
I did Blind Eyes Bleed, yeah. And I did a bunch of bands in between, you know. I was doing like I did Lou Reed and Daughtry and
Fuck yeah,
uh,
man.
yeah, so a bunch of different bands.
What
We're
was
just trying to.
what was Lou Reed like?
Lou Reed was awesome.
Right on,
Holy
man.
smokes, man! He was great. He was so smart, and he was so funny. He was quick. He was witty. He was amazing, man. He had the most incredible. He could hear shit that I didn't know you could hear.
Right.
Like he could, we were playing, and he's like, you know, something sounds funny in my amp. Could you go give it a check and just make sure everything's in there and tubes are sitting correct? I'm like, sure, Lou, I'll go check it out. And so I go back there, check out his amps, and look through everything, and sure enough, man, one of his tubes was off just a little bit, like it wasn't sitting properly in the little thing, one of his power tubes. So
God.
I just straightened it out, put it in there, and he's playing. He goes, "What did you do?" I was like, "Well, there was a tube that was just slightly askew, and I set it back in place." He's like, "Okay, that was it. Sounds perfect." I'm like, "Wow."
Oh my
How did
gosh.
how did how did he hear that?
Well,
So,
that's
but yeah, Lou is amazing, man. He, once in a while he just say, "Hey Johnny, you got one of them funny cigarettes?" I'm like,
shit.
"Sure,
Yeah.
man. Here you go."
That'd have been
Yeah,
great
he's
to get
great.
stoned with Lou Reed. And
Oh, it was awesome, man.
I was listening to that second Kitty. I think this is the only Lou Reed to Kitty transition in the history of podcasting. But I was listening to I was listening to that second Kitty record the other day, man. That shit still slays.
Yeah,
They
they're a great
like.
band.
Um, but yeah, so now you come back to Slayer. You say in '09, and
Yeah.
you worked with them till the end.
So yeah, so 19 till they called it quits.
Yeah, yeah. Do you see that being a permanent thing?
I tell people when they ask me, "You think they're going to tour or play again?" I go, "Dude, you know what?" I go, "Money talks. I think for the right amount of money, they'll probably do a show.
Right,
They might do a couple of dates here and there. I don't know if they'll tour. I don't know if they'll make a new record, but hey, man, you throw the right amount of money at them, they'll get together and play again for
right
sure."
on, man. Like
So I know they ain't done. I mean, right now they're kind of like a merch store, but I think if they get enough pressure from the fans and someone throws a nice big chunk at them, they'll do it for sure.
right, right.
Yeah.
Well, let's get back to the podcast and how'd you meet Brittany?
Holy smokes! So the band announced, well, they announced, but Thomas said, "Hey, this is going to be our final tour." I'm like, "Fuck, all right, shit, that's crazy." So I thought about it. I'm like, "Man, you know what? I never got a Slayer tat for all the years that I worked for them." I'm like, "Oh, I'll fucking get one, commemorate the last tour ever." So I'm looking online. I go to Instagram and I do search. I search heavy metal tattoos. So all these tattoos come up, and there's this tattoo of Rattlehead, right? This
Yeah,
Megadeth
Megadeth.
logo.
Yeah,
I'm like, whoa, this is rad. So I clicked it, and I'm checking out the detail. And I'm like, wow, this is rad. Who did this? And it says BZ Elliot. I go, BZ, all right. So I clicked on the name, and her thing comes up, and wow, she's a fucking tattoo artist, badass. She's in the metal. She does fucking metal tattoos, and I go, she's a huge Slayer fan. I said, this is a person that's going to do it. I got a day off in Texas. This will be perfect. We'll have a day off. I roll in, get a tattoo, and done. So I sent an email and said, hey, I'm coming through town. I want to know if how available you are. I really want to get the Wehrmacht, Satanic Wehrmacht
oh
tattoo
yeah.
somewhere to commemorate the final tour, and I'll be in Texas at this date. And so she writes back, "Hey, what's up? I won't be in town that day. I'm at a convention in Virginia." And she writes back. She goes, "Sorry, I'll be back in town this date." And I'm like, "All right, cool. If you're ever in San Diego or in LA area, let me know. I really want to get this tattoo." But so I left it at that. And then she writes back, "Hey, are you related to Tom? I was like, yeah. She goes, because I saw John Araya, then I saw Slayer Crew, and I put two and two together. I'm like, yeah. I go, yeah, I am. She's, oh, that's awesome. Okay, cool. So we didn't communicate for months, and then the next leg of the U.S. show was coming up, and I saw like, oh shit, we got a day off in El Paso and Dallas. So I wrote her again and said, hey, we're going to be in Texas here. Do you have any openings? And she says, no, but I can come out. I'll come out to El Paso. It's not far, and I'll just come down, bring my shit, and we'll fucking tattoo you somewhere. I'm like, all right, sounds good. So she comes down. She ends up tattooing Gary's wife, and kind of stole my tattoo appointment. Like, God damn it! But that's how I met her. Pretty much, I found the Megadeth tattoo, and I'm like, this girl's gonna tattoo me, and then we just kept in touch, and it just went from there.
Well, y'all are so much fun to hang out with, and just
she's awesome,
and really just vibe off each other. Great, man. I can't tell people enough to check out your podcast.
Oh, thank you, man. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Man. Well, is there? You even started. You are a tattoo artist now. I think I heard where she taught you how to tattoo during pandemic.
I'm apprenticing still. I've done a few tattoos, but I still need so much practice. I mean, she showed me so much. She's very patient. She took the time out to show me, the ropes and what to do, what not to do. She let me use her machines. I don't have any machines of my own yet, but she's got plenty of machines. I was trying out different ones, different coil. I haven't tried out any rotaries yet, but I've been working with coils.
Yeah.
She's taught me so much, and you got to draw, you got to get your line straight, you got to keep a steady hand, don't drink too much coffee, don't get too stoned. I was like, all right, yeah, me no. So my first tattoo I did, I was kind of high. I go, you're right. I'm kind of wigging out here a little bit because I'm really high, and I'm trying to do this tattoo, and I'm sweating too much. She's like, I told you.
See, that counts me right out, man. I just there's no way I could do that. I smoke way too much weed.
You know what? I could probably not smoke for an hour or two.
There you go. Yeah, take one for the team, Johnny.
But so she's been apprenticing me, and got about 6 tattoos already.
Right.
It's fun, man. It's nerve-wracking, but it's fun. I'm just now getting the hang of it. I want to do more, but I don't have a name yet, like to go out. And I'm not good enough to go out there and just say, hey, come get tattooed by me. I don't feel I'm good enough yet to do that. So,
well, you'll get there, man. I'm sure.
I got to practice. Yeah, just practice. That's all.
So what's next for the podcast, and what's next for you, my friend?
Podcast. We're gonna Britt and I. We got some friends lined up. I was talking with God damn it. I can't. I have a brain fart right now.
Smoking too much weed, man. See?
Yeah. Shit. I'll come back to it. I have a friend of ours, Jake. He's a writer. He does a podcast as well. But he was working with us on the Slayer tour as a VIP organizer.
Right.
But he's also a podcaster. He's a writer. I didn't know that he was a writer, and he's all around fucking. He's like a Renaissance man. I didn't know he did all this other shit. I'm like, dude, I didn't know you did all this. I thought you were just a VIP guy. He goes, oh no, man. He goes, I do other things. I'm like, fuck, all right. So he's gonna be on. He's agreed to it. He's all for it. We got Phil and Semmel to agree to it, but we still have to set a date. Him and Kate.
Right on.
Yeah, they're like, yeah, of course, yeah, we'll do it.
Phil's great, man.
So we haven't set a date. We got to coordinate that. And man, I can't believe that I'm pulling a fucking brain fart right now.
It's all good, man. It happens.
No, it's not, because he's my friend, and I can't remember his name right now.
Sometimes you're too close to something to see it correctly.
Oh, sheesh. Well, you can edit this out because it's like dead air.
Sure, man.
But
I'll do.
we'll be talking, and it's just gonna hit me like, oh, his name is.
It's all
You know
good.
what? I seriously can't believe that I'm fucking have a brain fart right now.
Right. Well, you're
Yeah.
heading back out, or you said you're heading back out on the road with the Misfits?
Yeah, we got I got a Halloween show Saturday. Let's see, and then they got a New Year's Eve show in Vegas, the Misfits.
Shit, yeah.
So yeah, that's gonna be fucking crazy.
Yeah,
That's gonna be so crazy.
I may see you there, my friend, and pull you into weed hell at some point, you know.
Are you coming out for that?
We possibly were talking about it. So if I do,
boy,
it's on, man.
you let us. Yeah, you let us know. Brett will be there. We'll both be there. We'll both be hanging. So
Right
let us
on,
know.
man.
That'd be awesome.
It sounds
We'll
killer, man.
We'll do a Las Vegas part 2.
Absolutely. Well,
Yeah.
all right, my friend. I'm going to let you go. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast and being so kind
all
to
right,
share
man.
your experiences with us. And for everybody,
That's all right, dude.
it's the Haunted Chapel podcast. And
That's right.
any plugs, any social media you want to plug on here? Website?
Haunted Chapel podcast. Yeah, we have it's a .com as well. It's a website, thehauntedchapel.com. We have our podcasts are streaming on there as well. We also have merchandise on there for sale. Britt has her own website, bztattoo.com.
All right. I want to thank Mr. Johnny Araya for coming on the podcast and hanging with us tonight. As he mentioned in the interview, you can check him out on the Haunted Chapel podcast, and make sure you do so. It's a badass listen. And that's about our show for this evening, but keep your eyes peeled on our socials and the website for information regarding our first live date of 2023, which will be on February 15th. Guests and other information will be released soon. So until then, stay switched on, and we'll talk to you soon.